Well, hello and welcome back to the channel. This time I'm going to do a 6-month, 6,000 kilometer review on this car. It's a 911 991.2 Turbo S. Like I say, I've had it 6 months. I've got a real feel for the car now. I've been meaning to do this review of what I think of it as a daily driver. So let's check it out. I got the rolly chair. This is very Doug DeMiro, but I thought I want to sit down and have a little chat, and I've written some notes, and I think it's only fair to kind of take some time and talk about my 6 months in this 991.2 Turbo S. Now, as you'll recall, I traded this car in December last year from my Audi e-tron GT, and I needed another daily driver. And I decided I'm going to go back to petrol from electric, and I'm going to go from Audi to Porsche as a brand. And I've never had a modern Porsche. I've obviously got the 993 1996 Carrera 4S, which, you know, that's classic Porsche. This is modern Porsche. This is Volkswagen, you know, technology, and it's many evolutions above that older classic car. And so, you know, I wanted to know, what is it like? Now, you remember when I test drove the car up in Auckland, I compared it against a 992 Carrera 4S, which I thought I would be going up to buy. And then this was kind of like a bit of a wild card, throw it in. It was a little bit older. It's a 2016 model, but it's only done 8,000 kilometers from new. And it is mint, absolutely mint. One owner, one New Zealand owner who spec'd it from new. And when I took it for a drive, wow, it just literally blew my mind. It was my first experience of two cars, two Porsches, that drove completely differently. Now, I know people say that they always drive differently, but until you actually experience these different cars, they all look the same to the average pedestrian, but they drive very differently. And of course, I was just completely smitten with this 991.2 Turbo S. The interior of the 991.2 in the 991, I much preferred over the 992. The 992, as you recall, I found it to be too many screens, kind of starting to go haptic. It felt a little cheaper. There was a bit of a creak in the steering wheel, plasticky. It felt like what Volkswagen had kind of crossed out a few numbers in the accounting department to try and save costs. And this just felt like, and I described it as Peek Porsche, and many of you in the comments agreed, this could be Peek Porsche, and I still maintain that view. Now, a little bit later in January, I compared this car against a friend's GT3 Touring, a 992 GT3 Touring. And once again, I discovered that, you know, between these different types of Porsches, whether it's a turbo or a Carrera or a GT3 or, you know, they're completely different vehicles. And I totally understand why people have more than one Porsche. And I totally understand why they get bitten by the bug. One day I'll do a comparison perhaps between my 488, which is another whole different car again, moving from Porsche to Ferrari. I don't even know if it's a fair comparison, because the Ferrari is just so much more visceral and raw and exciting and thrilling and special. But this car works really well as a daily driver. In fact, it works really well as everything. I had to really think about what the quirks and the faults that, if I could have any, of this car would be. And so I have written them down, and I'm going to tell them to you shortly. But in the first 3 months of ownership of this car, I didn't really get to drive it very much, sadly. It was because there was so much else on in the way of driving. I've been up to the North Island in the Ferrari 488 for the Ferrari Club's annual general meeting, so that took up a big chunk of time, and I've just been busy filming other cars and doing other videos. But anyway, back to Porsche. So first 3 months didn't really clock up many of the Ks in the car, sadly. After 3 months, I got hit by a bit of a bombshell. I had a random colonoscopy and discovered that I had cancer in my colon. Now, this changes your life, the C word. And I won't dwell too much on this, because cancer is actually far too common. And, you know, if you're my age, and I'm 52, go and get a colonoscopy if you haven't had one already. You know, it's just something you should be doing. They cut it all out, and right now I'm on the final course of chemotherapy just to sort of mop up any last little cancer cells that might be soaking around, and I'll be good. But boy, it changes your life. And it's been pretty tough in the last 3 months, or the most recent 3 months, going through this chemotherapy, because you know, it gives you a lot of sensitivity to the cold, bloating, and anyway, I won't bore you with all the side effects, but it's pretty nasty. So go and get a checkup especially if you've got history of it in your family, which I didn't. So there you go. However, in the last 3 months, I did manage to still do quite a few Ks in this car. The bulk of the Ks were done in the last 3 months. Christine and I managed to get away down to the south a little bit and have some sort of 2-3 day weekends. One was down near Tekapo in Pukaki. Beautiful down there, icy cold. Really good test of this car's four-wheel drive capabilities on icy roads, and also the defrosting technology in the car, which I'll talk about in just a minute as a pro. Driving through there, I did have a little bit of an incident with a law enforcement officer.
Oh, yes,
I might have been accidentally driving around 138 kilometers an hour, and that was just a little bit too fast. That's another problem with this car. You can be driving too fast, too easily, and the big long straight roads, you know, you're cruising, and then next minute, you know, whoop, you get pulled over, and that's not cool. And another trip we did just last week was down south to Oamaru, which is another nice big long trip. Better weather this time, drier track conditions. We took bit of a long route down through there, and just a magnificent car to use on trips like that. It's actually great to use every day, and I've been using it pretty much every day. So what do I like about this car? And what do I find a little bit frustrating about the car? I'm not going to say dislikes, because it was actually really hard to find things that I did not like and do not like about this car. It is a very likable car. It's so likable, in fact, you could almost say it's boring a little bit, but that's kind of okay for a daily driver, I think. On the likes, I would say most definitely the biggest one for me is the physical buttons. The fact that everything is tactile, proper buttons for your air conditioning, proper buttons on the steering wheel. There's no haptic nonsense going on here. The user interface is very clearly laid out. I like that the CarPlay is over in the center screen, and then across the front you've got a proper rev counter, and then proper dials. Just one LCD dial, which has got all your tire pressures on if you want it, and then it's got your daily trip results, your average consumption, kilometers left, petrol left. Like, the layout is really well thought out. And looking at the 992, I don't want to completely compare it again with the 992, but the new digital screens, they're just trying to put too much information. It's information for the sake of information. I actually really like a good manual fuel gauge. I like a good manual oil gauge. You know, one of the things about owning a car and driving is, in my opinion, those kind of nice tactile feelings that when you get in the car and you turn it on, the oil comes up, the petrol comes up, the oil pressure comes up. These are things that you want to be checking. You know, even one of the things I love about this car is the fuel cap. You know, the petrol cap on here is just this gorgeous silver Porsche cap. And it's just the feeling that you get when you turn up to the petrol station and you open that and you put it into its little special holder and you fill the car up. It's incredibly satisfying. If there was one thing I would improve, I'd put that really cool, it's like a little leather or plastic flap that comes down that actually protects a drip flap, like there's on the 993, because that kind of tactile nature of driving, I love. I just think it's so cool. There's another like right there. The brakes, these carbon brakes, I've never driven a car with brakes this good. In fact, they're so good that I got back into my 488 just recently, and I was approaching a corner at speed, hit the brakes hard, and boy, they felt really soft. And I'm actually going to get them checked, because I'm so used to this car stopping just instantaneously that all the other cars now just seem to be underperforming when it comes to braking. Maybe I have got a problem with the 488 brakes, but boy, they are incredible, and they stop the car instantaneously. The four-wheel drive, I mentioned, fantastic. I've always owned a lot of four-wheel drive cars, all the Audi R8s, of course, being Quattro. And then the electric cars, you've got like Tesla Model 3 Performance is four-wheel drive, the Volvo XC40 is four-wheel drive, the Carrera 4S is four-wheel drive. And so I really like I really like being quite planted to the road and not having this idea of I could kill myself just by flying off the road. The visibility out the car is fantastic, second to none. Like you get in the car, you can see all around you. Perhaps a dislike, and the only negative to that is the reversing camera, is in a slightest rain or the slightest amount of mud on the road, it'll just blur the camera with mud and you're constantly out there trying to wash it and clean it off. That is a negative, and I don't know if they fixed that on the later cars or not, but yeah, I'm going to put that down as a negative. The key in the ignition. Now, I know that with the, I don't know what they're calling the very latest model Porsche, but they've switched from a key turn to a push button, and I know this has been quite controversial in Porsche world. So I do love the fact that this does have a kind of a permanent key in its position. You still have a wireless key in your pocket. You just jump in the car and you still have that action of turning and starting the car. Again, it's that tactile thing. I love it. It's a shame that they've removed it or changed it to a push button. That doesn't feel very Porsche to me, but I don't know. Some people like it. It's progress, right? It's progress. The Flappy paddles, they're a good metallic paddle, unlike on the R8, which feel like little mouse ears. These are proper good feeling paddles. Again, they're not, when you change them, they do feel a little bit soft to change. It's still perfectly good, but Ferrari have nailed it when it comes to Flappy paddle changing. They've got this awesome little double micro switch in there, which you feel when you click through it, carbon fiber, little paddles, and well, fantastic. So yeah, I'm going to give the points to Ferrari on that, and some room for improvement. Maybe a nice little click action, just like they have. Study what the Ferrari are doing. That's probably going to improve a lot. The windscreen wipers, fantastic. All the Volkswagen Group cars, actually, I'm going to say, have fantastic rain sensor technology. You really notice this in other cars that just seem to underperform in rain conditions, especially light rain. But this is very good at picking up wet conditions. So I'm going to give that a giant thumbs up as a big like, especially when you're driving it daily and driving it in wet conditions and stuff. There's a button on this car, maximum AC, and essentially it's like a defrost the car if you're in a hurry and you need to get in and you just want to have maximum blast to completely clear the windows. Now this I discovered when we were down south, and car was completely covered in frost and I needed to basically defrost it. Press that button and it's up and going really quickly. So that's awesome. Going to give that a thumbs up. The auto headlights. This car has, I don't know, they're not laser headlights like in the Audi e-tron, which are amazing. I've never seen headlights like the laser matrix system that Audi use in their e-tron GT and some of their other cars, like their R8s. But this car does have an auto moving headlights. I don't know how they work, but they work pretty well. Again, they're not projecting twice as far like you would with the laser lights, but they're very, very good in the dark, and I'm going to give that a big thumbs up. So what is there not to like about this car? Well, actually not very much, and I had to dig quite deep to get these kind of quirks and these kind of negative features. So I'm going to list them, but do keep in mind that I still love this car, okay? So I'm going to start with the cup holder. This Porsche hasn't had a cup holder in car for a long time. It was very controversial. There was kind of like, I think, something that you could put in the center console to turn it into a cup holder, or maybe that's on the latest cars, I can't remember. This one has probably got the best cup holder system, I think, in the Porsches that I'm aware of, and it's over on the passenger side, and it pops out and swings out 2 cup holders, one for the driver, one for the passenger. The only thing is, I mean, it's in a great position for the driver, kind of blocks the passenger's view a little bit when you put your water bottle in, and the weird thing about it is when you go around corners, the bottle swings, the cup swings around. Now, mine might be broken, so let me know in the comments if you've got one of these. Should that actually swing when you're driving? Because it's quite distracting when you go around a corner and then you sort of, out the corner of your eye, you see the cup starting to drift. So please let me know. Maybe I need to get that fixed. This is a sports car. It's not a GT car. And yes, it does have road noise. It's not terrible. I'm running this on Pirelli P0s at the moment, and yeah, I don't know whether I'd get better performance from, say, Michelin Pilot Sports or something else. Again, let me know in the comments if you're driving it with something else and you've found improvements in road noise. Hey, the handling is great still with these tires, and I guess, you know, you can live with a little bit of road noise when you know you're stuck to the road. Also keep in mind, New Zealand roads are shocking. I think I've said this in just about every video. We don't have the lovely sort of smooth, perfect roads like you do in Europe. We have some, and when we drive on those roads, perfect, no road noise whatsoever. But when you drive on a normal New Zealand road at 100 kilometers an hour, the drone does get to you a little bit, and that is a little bit frustrating. Not really Porsche's fault, more probably Waka Kotahi's fault, the New Zealand Transport Association. Now, I've also got a problem with this car which is getting in progress getting fixed. We've been in a couple of times trying to fix it, but it's a creaky noise in the back. Sounds like it's coming from either the suspension on the right-hand side or the sway bar connection. As you sort of go over bumps, you kind of get a It's going back into Porsche next week. They're going to have another look at it and see if they can actually get to the bottom of what's causing it. So it's fixable, but it's a little bit annoying at the moment because it's been like it for 6 months and we still haven't got to the bottom of it, but we will. I know we will. Now, the navigation that comes with the car is pretty rubbish. However, I use CarPlay, so I don't think it's fair to give that a complete negative, but all the Volkswagen cars' technology for navigation is crap. So yeah, use CarPlay, I think, is the solution to that problem. Now, on the story or the topic of the head unit, the sound system in this is just the base sound system, and I think it is a Bose sound system. Also pretty rubbish. Coming out of the sound system that was in the e-tron GT, which is amazing, the upgraded B&O sound system that comes in that car, this is a giant step backwards in sound quality. And that's a shame because I do like to drive my cars and listen to podcasts or listen to music from time to time. And I want to have, you know, good music. You know, this car retails nowadays for between $400,000 and $500,000 New Zealand. You would expect there to be a premium sound system in it. And the Bose system, the speakers are pretty rubbish. Now, there is a Burmester sound system upgrade that you can get at the factory when you order the car, which apparently is awesome and no problem at all. It doesn't seem that you can retrofit that to this car, but there are third-party high-quality sound systems, speaker systems that you can put in and upgrade the car, which is probably an upgrade I'll look at doing at some point. Another little thing that frustrates me about the car is when you drive off, it doesn't auto-lock the doors. There doesn't seem to be a way to auto-lock the doors. Now, carjacking is not really a thing in New Zealand, but you know, I've got daughters that drive all the time, and you know, I am very conscious of the fact that, you know, if they're ever driving any of my cars, I kind of want them to be locked in the car for their own protection. You know, at a stop sign, you just don't know, and to have to manually lock the doors once you get in when you drive off, I think that's, why is that not a feature? I don't understand. And again, if you've figured out a way of enabling that possibility in this car, please let me know in the comments, but I haven't figured a way of doing it. Okay, the suspension on the car is firm, but good. Again, I think most of the issues would come down to poor New Zealand roads. The sport suspension are obviously much firmer, never used it, never bothered with it, haven't taken this car on a track. I don't really get any enjoyment out of tracking my cars, so I don't tend to take them on the track, unless it's just sort of, we parade around the track a little bit and maybe, you know, take kids for a ride around a track in a car. I'll do that, but I'm not into racing these cars, so I enjoy driving them on roads. And so I don't really need that sports suspension, but I guess it's there if you want it. One more thing, again, it's about the entertainment system, is for some reason on the steering wheel, there is no forward and backwards controls for tracks if you're listening to music. Nearly every car I've got has got a forward and backwards track button on the steering wheel. And I use this a lot. You know, if you've got listening to music and a track comes up, you want to hear it again or you want to skip past it, you have to kind of move to the center console where they do have the buttons, but why is it not on the steering wheel? Instead, there are buttons on the steering wheel that like answer the phone and hang up the phone, but it doesn't work with CarPlay. So I don't know what they're thinking. And the very last thing is, it doesn't really bother me a lot, but it's a bit of a weird quirk. Whenever you start the car, it's always set to 22 degrees. I don't know who decided this. I don't know why it's not set to the temperature that you had when you were last in the car. I don't know why it's not associated to your memory profile and remembers every time you get back in the car. But 22 degrees, that seems to be the temperature that you have to have when you start up the car. Oh, and one last thing, which is actually is probably the only quirk that annoys me very, very most, and that is the entertainment system when you turn off the car, exit the car, even lock the car. The entertainment system, Bluetooth power and USB power, which powers Apple wireless CarPlay, because I use a wireless CarPlay dongle for this car, it stays on for about 30 minutes after you turn off the car. I don't know why you can't seem to change this. It'd be interesting to know if anyone has managed to change that 30-minute timer, maybe by coding the car and plugging in, like a Rostec cable, and maybe you can change that 30 minutes. But 30 minutes, the reason it's a problem for me is when I get home, the car is paired by Wi-Fi to the CarPlay, which is great. I turn the car off, it stays paired for 30 minutes. I walk away from the car, it's got quite good range, and so walking around the house, I'm still paired to the car with CarPlay. And the problem with that is we don't get any cell phone reception at home. So my phone doesn't pick up onto the home Wi-Fi for 30 minutes. So I have no signal, no coverage, and occasionally I'll always have to manually force it back to the home Wi-Fi so that I can get internet connection. And then inevitably you'll kind of walk near the car again, or it'll suddenly randomly just reconnect itself back to the car. It's a real nuisance because I don't have cellular internet at home, but nonetheless, maybe that can be fixed through a kind of a diagnostics port upgrade. Other than that, it's a great car. I love it. I'm going to keep doing the kilometers in it and keep using it as a daily car because I like it. I like that it's understated as well. Whenever you're driving, you don't get people with camera phones taking pictures like I do in the 488 or even in the R8s. People are out taking pictures all the time. This just flies under the radar. It's just another Porsche on the road. Yeah, occasionally you'll get people looking at it, but it's rare compared to most other cars, and probably being silver, that actually helps as well. So go out, find yourself one of these. They're priced really well, I think, at the moment, and I think this is the Porsche to get. The 911 991.2 Turbo S. Go and find one. Thank you very much for watching, and subscribe, and I'm hoping to do a whole lot more videos real soon, so we'll talk to you then.